In the heart of the Ottoman Empire, for nearly 5 centuries, one force stood above all others as the backbone of imperial power. They were the Janissaries, the Yenicheri, the new soldiers, elite infantry, personal guards of the Sultan, and eventually a political power that could make or break emperors. This is their story. The Janissary Corps emerged in the mid to late 14th century, most likely under Sultan Murad I, though some traditions credit his father Orhan. The young Ottoman state needed a professional standing army loyal solely to the Sultan, free from the rivalries of the Turkish tribal nobility. Their ranks were filled through a system known as the Devshirme, or the Gathering. Every few years, Ottoman officials would levy Christian boys from the Balkan provinces, mainly from rural families in what is now Greece, Serbia, Bulgaria, Albania, and beyond. Boys aged roughly 8 to 18, selected for strength and potential. They were taken from their homes, converted to Islam, circumcised, and given new names. It was a form of human tax, deeply resented by many Christian communities, yet it produced one of the most formidable military institutions in history. These youths were first placed with Turkish families to learn the language and customs, then sent to training schools as esemi oyan, novices. There they endured rigorous physical training, education in Islamic doctrine, Turkish, and military arts. They lived in barracks, were forbidden to marry in the early centuries, and were taught absolute loyalty to the Sultan as their only family. The Bektashi order of dervishes provided spiritual guidance, and their distinctive headgear often reflected this connection. Initially expert archers armed with composite bows, the Janissaries quickly adopted firearms in the 15th century. By the time of the great sieges and battles of the 16th century, they were masters of the musket and among the first infantry forces in the world to rely primarily on gunpowder weapons. They also carried the yatagan, a distinctive curved sword that became a symbol of the corps, along with axes, daggers, and other close combat weapons. Organized into units called ortas, the corps was divided into 3 main divisions: the Sema'ate for frontier service, the Boluk as the Sultan's bodyguard, and the Sekban. At their height under Suleiman the Magnificent, they numbered in the tens of thousands and formed the decisive core of Ottoman armies. Their military record is legendary. At the Battle of Varna in 1444, they helped crush a crusading army. In 1453, under Mehmed the Conqueror, Janissaries stormed the walls of Constantinople, ending the Byzantine Empire. At Calderan in 1514, they shattered Safavid cavalry with disciplined firepower. At Mohacs in 1526, they destroyed the Hungarian army, opening Central Europe to Ottoman power. Even in the failed sieges of Vienna, their engineering and infantry assaults were feared across Europe. For 2 centuries, the Janissaries were the terror of Christendom and the pride of the Ottoman state. Paid regular salaries, living in barracks, marching to the martial music of the Mehter bands, they were a true standing army long before most of Europe developed similar institutions. But power and privilege eventually corrupted them. In the late 16th century, the celibacy rule was relaxed. Muslim-born recruits were admitted. The ranks swelled with men who bought their positions for the tax exemptions and social status rather than for combat. Numbers grew from around 10 or 15,000 in the classical period to over 100,000 by the early 19th century, many of them non-combatants, artisans, or merchants who simply held certificates entitling them to pay. They became a conservative political force, resisting military reform, deposing sultans who threatened their privileges, Osman II in 1622, Selim III in 1807, and extracting bonuses and concessions. The once elite force that had conquered empires had become a barrier to the empire's survival in a changing world. The end came in 1826 under Sultan Mahmud II. Determined to modernize the army along European lines, he created a new force. When the Janissaries revolted, as expected, Mahmud was ready. Artillery pounded their barracks in Istanbul. The compound burned. Thousands died in the fighting and subsequent executions. The event was officially called the Vaka-i Hayriye, the auspicious incident. The Janissary Corps was abolished forever, replaced by the Asakir-e Muhammadiye, the victorious soldiers of Muhammad. The Janissaries left a complex legacy. They were both the instrument of Ottoman greatness and a symptom of its later stagnation. Their system of recruitment, though harsh, created a meritocratic elite that rose from Christian peasant boys to commanders and even grand viziers. Their early adoption of firearms and disciplined infantry tactics influenced military history, yet their later political interference and resistance to change contributed to the empire's inability to keep pace with the West. Today, the image of the Janissary, tall felt hat, flowing robes, musket or yataghan in hand, remains one of the most iconic symbols of the Ottoman world. They were slaves who became masters, outsiders who became the heart of the empire, and ultimately a force that the empire itself had to destroy in order to survive. This has been a look at the rise and fall of the Janissaries. History is rarely simple, and the new soldiers of the Ottoman sultans remind us that even the most powerful institutions can be undone by the very privileges that once made them strong.